Hi everyone and welcome to this brand new Elementor tutorial. In this video we're going to further explore Lottie animations and how you can implement them in your Elementor websites. In this particular case, we'll be looking at how you can make Lottie animations interactive and react to the page scroll. There's a bunch of settings we'll need to go over, and you can set up various conditions for this to happen. And it's all very simple and intuitive, and what's great about it is that it is possible without using Elementor Pro or third-party plugins. We'll be doing all that in the free version of Elementor Page Builder. Alright, we'll need to take several steps before we even start working in Elementor. And since you guys expressed some interest in learning how to export the animation from After Effects, etc., this is why we're going to start from picking the illustration and animating the illustration in After Effects, exporting the animated illustration from After Effects, and then embedding it on your Elementor page using Lottie Player. But for those of you guys who are not interested in how to export the animation from After Effects, there is this timecode in the description which you can jump to start watching from the point where we're already starting to embed the animated illustration in JSON format on our Elementor page. Now let's start from the very beginning. To start animating in After Effects, we need some illustration to animate actually. And this is the illustration that I picked for our tutorial. I think showing graphs and various moving elements will emphasize how the scrolling of the page actually impacts the animation of the illustration. And I'm gonna grab this illustration on TemplateMonster Marketplace, where you can find tons of digital products starting from website templates, e-commerce templates, presentation templates, and also graphics, illustrations, various social media templates, mockups, a ton of other stuff, and most recently, it is also stock video, motion graphics templates, including After Effects templates, Premiere Pro templates, Final Cut templates, and also even stock music. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, click on the links down below to check out our brand new updated marketplace with brand new fresh categories. Now in Adobe Illustrator, you want to make sure that you have all of your layers here grouped in such a way that every single group is a separate object that you will be animating. For example, if you're not using any extra plugins, it will be more comfortable for you to split this particular group into separate parts, because you might want to animate every single hexagon separately. To do that, go to Ungroup, and here you have every single hexagon in its particular group, separated from the rest. The same applies to these graphs, for example. You want to ungroup these to have all of your graph bars on a separate layer. Let's make sure all of these objects are in separate groups. On the other hand, if you want to group several objects into one layer, simply select them and press Ctrl G or Command G. This is going to group the selected layers into one. Like now with this thing, I want to ungroup it and I want to have different levels of this thing on a separate layer, because I want to animate them as they float up and down. So now the task is pretty much simple, is to go over the entire document and make sure that all the objects and elements are grouped in the way that you want them to. Now the next step is to convert all of these groups we have on this layer in the layer panel to separate layers. To do that, we need to deselect everything here on our canvas, select the layer under which our groups are, go to this Options menu, and choose Release to Layers Sequence. This is going to turn all of our groups into separate layers. Next step is to grab all of these layers and move them up in the hierarchy, so they later can show up in the Layers panel in After Effects. Now it will be better if you go and rename all of your layers. It will be way easier for you later on. Now once you're done renaming, all you have to do is just save this document, close Adobe Illustrator, and go to After Effects. There in After Effects, in the new project, create a new composition by pressing Ctrl N or Command N, this is going to give you a dialog window to create a new composition. The frame rate won't play much role here, since we'll be controlling the speed of the animation with the mouse wheel, but I would recommend keeping it around 30 or higher. Now to start animating, let's drop our AI file right here on the timeline. And in the dialog window, when you choose composition, and in the footage dimensions, it will be layer size. Now it gives you the composition. You could scale it down. And this will be our composition that we'll be later exporting. But now let's go in and see all of our layers being here. And to actually make them editable and to be able to edit each of the little points and create the animation of these graphs growing, of these lines moving like this. Let's move it at the very bottom of the layer list. So to actually achieve this kind of animation that we have over here, for example, where you're able to grab a point and start dragging it around, and as far as you can tell, this is how this graph was animated, like this. To be able to do the same with this vector document, with all of these layers from Adobe Illustrator, we'll need to select them all, press Ctrl A to select all of your layers, go to Layer, Create, and create shapes from vector layers. If you have a lot of layers, it's going to take a while. And after that, you already have all of your layers absolutely perfectly editable. And you can start animating this illustration as you please. And you still have all of your Illustrator layers as spare copies. By the way, to move all of these layers to the top of my layer panel, I just press Ctrl and the right square bracket, and this is how all of my layers have jumped up in the layer list. Okay, now I'm going to walk you through the animation and all of the keyframes that I have for this illustration. Since we're not an After Effects channel, and the illustration you will be animating is very likely to be different from what I'm working on here. That is why let me now show you how you can export the animation that you have created from After Effects and then embed it on your Elementor website. So, to be able to export the animation in the JSON format from After Effects, you'll need a plugin which is called Body Moving. You don't have to pay anything for it if you don't want to, because it's name your own price, which means you can donate to the author of the plugin, but you don't have to, which means it can be downloaded from the website for free. The link to this page will be in the description down below, and you will only need to create an account on the website and you'll be able to download the plugin right away without any payments. The plugin is very easy to install and the instructions are right here on the website, so it's not gonna take you a long time before you have it available on your After Effects installation. Now, once you are done installing the plugin, you have to relaunch After Effects, and right after that, the plugin will appear under Extensions, Body Moving. Now let me show you what to do from there. So once you open the Body Moving window, you'll have this panel right here, and it will suggest you selecting the composition that you want to export. There it is, there is my composition that I want to export. If you click on this icon, you'll see all of the settings that you can change before you export the JSON file. In our particular case, since the animation was fairly simple and we had no text in there and no embedded images, nothing like that, we don't really need to change anything here. And all the other settings are pretty much self-explanatory, like if you need to export the hidden layers or if you need to export the guides that you have on your composition, We're going to just click Save without changing anything. There is the destination folder where the JSON file will be saved. Change it to your own liking. And after that, all that's left to do is to press render. It's really that simple. Once render is finished, just click Done and go to the destination folder to check if the JSON file is actually there. And from now on, we can say that we're done with After Effects and we can move on to actually embedding our animation on the Elementor page. Now all the viewers who have skipped the introductory part of the tutorial where we went over how to animate the illustration in After Effects will actually join us and we'll continue this journey together. Now we're on the Lottie Files website. It's lottiefiles.com and the link is, as always, in the description. Here, whether you have animated your illustration yourself or you had someone do it for you or you have purchased it on the external resource, your steps from now on will be pretty much the same. We will need to go to the preview option right here. And it opens a preview window. Before we start doing all that, it is better to actually have the Lottie Files account created. Like I have one over here, which means I can upload and save Lottie animations on my account. And I also can edit the colors and overall have a lot more control over what I'm doing right here on the website. So, the preview. Once we're here, we'll grab our illustration and drop it right there to see if it actually works and if it has exported the way that we wanted it to. Okay, it seems to be looking just fine. Now, if you downloaded or bought the JSON file from somewhere or you had it someone created for you, you can go to Edit Layer Colors option and it will open the Lottie editor, which is a great feature which gives you access to the color of every single layer you have in your animation. And you can go in and change the colors the way you want. Now, from the moment once you uploaded your Lottie animation to view the preview, you will be able to access it in My Previews menu at any time. It will always be there even if you do not click this Publish to Public button. It will still be in your storage and it will be available via this particular link. Now, let's see what we can do with this link. Alright, there is the empty page on Elementor Page Builder. Now, I've told you that you do not need Elementor Pro or third-party plugins to be able to embed a Lottie animation on an Elementor page, and that's absolutely right because we're going to use the HTML element in the Elementor free widgets list. And this is where we're going to drop that code. Now let's jump back to the preview very quickly, and we're going to need to copy this code. Lottie animation URL, not the private link, but the Lottie animation URL. We're copying this one by clicking this button. And we're going to go to the home page, go to the tools and the web player. And here we have the web player editor. And first and foremost, we'll need to replace this link with our link that we have just copied from our preview window. Now the play mode, direction, background color, we'll leave all of that at default. Now the width and the height and pretty much everything else will be editable later in this code, so you'll be able to change the width and the height as it fits to your page a little later. But in our case, since we'll be setting up the interactivity settings for our illustration, we'll need to remove the controls, autoplay, and loop checkboxes right there. Now that's pretty much it. I would only suggest making it a little bit bigger. Go for 600 pixels and then simply click copy code, get back to your Elementor editor, and embed the code in the HTML code window. Just like this. Now nothing is happening. The animation is not playing because we have removed the autoplay checkbox, but we're going to fix that. Now we're back at the Lottie Files page. And now for everyone to be able to access the interactivity guide, you will need to go to Tools again, Interactivity Guide, and there will be a short and simple instruction as for how to set this up. But since I'm working with Elementor and not with a regular web page, it took me a while to figure out what works and what doesn't, and I'm going to show you a bulletproof way which will 100% work on your Elementor website. First, to install the interactivity component on our page, we'll need to copy this piece of code with the Lottie interactivity library. And as you can see here, we have a pretty much similar piece of code right there, right above the Lottie player tag. This is the one that drops the Lottie library on the page, and this is the one that drops the interactivity library on the page. Now the next step would be to add the settings. So, as I said, first we're going to sync Lottie with the scroll of our page. So let's copy all of this script, get back to our Elementor page, and drop this piece of code down here. But nothing seems to work just yet. Guess we'll need a tiny adjustment to make. Right after the Lottie player tag, we'll need to add the ID. Here it is. And this ID is going to be read by this script, and it will be able to play back the animation, which means we'll need to add the ID so the script can recognize the player. Now there's another surprise. You'll not be able to see if animation is actually playing back or not unless you go to the preview. So in the Elementor editor, it's not going to play back. So we'll need to update the page and go to the preview, but before that I have added a section right here, so we actually have some scrolling going on. So the animation has the ability to actually play back. And also the section right below the section with the illustration. That's how we'll be able to see if this actually works or not. So you can tell that some animation is happening, but it does not react to the viewport correctly. What we want is that once the animation actually reaches the viewport, as we scroll down the page, the illustration starts animating so we can see it from start to finish. Now, it doesn't happen here, but there is a way to fix it. Now, let's get back to the Elementor editor and click on our HTML element. This is still an HTML element right there. And we'll need to make a tiny adjustment to our actions segment right there. So once we're back in the interactivity guide, we'll scroll down the guide a little bit, and we will need to find the Lottie scroll with offset title. And it's going to explain to us how we can offset the animation by the parts of the page. Originally in this guide they're talking about the container, like until 30% of the container in which your animation is visible, the animation doesn't start to play, but at the 30% of the container it actually starts playing back and is playing back until the 100% of the container is visible. But in Elementor it's working a little bit differently, and we'll need to adjust to that. What we will do is write similar lines and explain to the Lottie player that we want the animation to start once we scroll past the percentage of the page around which our illustration is. So let's quickly jump back to Elementor and start working on it. So we'll need to make a couple simple changes. We need to duplicate this part. The first part will be the stop command. It will tell the library to not start the animation until the viewport reaches about 40% of the page, since our illustration, I would say, is around the middle of the page in this case. Also, the frames stay at 0, since our animation doesn't start, which means it is still on the 0 frame. Well, on the first frame, if we're being precise. Now, the second part of this segment will be the starting point of the animation. And the number right here will represent the number of frames at which your animation will end. Also, do not forget that both of these segments need to be in their separate curly brackets pair. Then let's see if it actually works or not. Let's update and jump to the preview. If something doesn't work, the first thing to do is to make sure that you have commas in all the right places, because in my case I didn't have it and the animation didn't play back. But now once I do, I scroll down and I see how the animation starts. Now also, if you want the animation to end a little bit earlier, you can set this number right there and it will end right at 70% of the page. As for how it works on mobile devices, let's test this out. Let's go to advanced positioning and then select inline to crop this widget to the size of the Lottie player container. This is done. Now let's go to the mobile view and see if it's positioned correctly. And no, it is not. It still retains that 600 pixels width, which probably means that we will need to go to responsive and hide this particular widget on mobile. And after we do that, we'll duplicate it, and there is the duplicated version. Select it, go to responsive now and hide it on desktop and unhide it on mobile. Go to content and try and edit the width and the height of the illustration. Now let's jump to the preview and see if we can play back our animation on a mobile device. Now I tried to set up the interactivity on the mobile device, but it didn't seem to work. That's why I adjusted the settings a little bit and I removed the interactivity library altogether, all the interactivity settings, and set the autoplay to on. And now the animation is just going to play back once. If you guys figure out Lottie interactivity for mobile devices with Elementor, let us know in the comments down below. It'll be greatly appreciated. Or you can also enable the loop option, but in my case it didn't look beautiful because I didn't intend this animation to loop. But in your case you can make looping look beautiful. So this Lottie animation will look great both on desktop and on mobile devices. Alright, that's pretty much that. We have just created the animated illustration, embedded it on Elementor website with Lottie files, with no third-party plugins and with no Elementor Pro subscription, and we made it react to the page scrolling. Which means we can now wrap up this tutorial and you guys can let us know what you think about this video, what else you would like to learn about Elementor or Lottie files, and also share with us your feedback and experiences about how you experimented with Lottie on your Elementor website. Now you guys are probably curious, so once again thank you for watching. Don't forget to check out newly updated TemplateMonster marketplace with the new great categories, and check out what you can get there for yourself. Or maybe you want to become an author and will be interested in checking out our How to Become an Author manual and all the benefits that you can get as an author on TemplateMonster marketplace. Take care, see you around.